Nobody tells you this. But most people fail not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunities, but because they never build a strong foundation. They try to change their life without structure, without principles, without pillars to hold everything together. And a life without pillars is like a house without a foundation. It might look fine on the outside for a while. It might even impress people from a distance. But sooner or later, it collapses. Not because it wasn't beautiful, but because it wasn't built to last. Today, you're not going to hear cheap motivation. You're not going to hear empty phrases that sound good, but change nothing. Today, you're going to understand the real pillars of success, the ones that separate people who dream from people who build, from people who execute, from people who actually transform their lives. And if you truly apply what you're about to hear, your life will begin to change. Not someday, not next year. It starts today. But before we go deeper, you need to understand something that most people never realize. Success is not luck. It is not magic. It is not something that randomly happens to a few people while the rest are left behind. Success is structure. It is built step by step, decision by decision, thought by thought. And those pillars, they are that structure. Everything begins in one place. Your mind, not your bank account, not your environment, not your connections, your mind. Because if your mind is weak, your life will be weak. If your mind is undisciplined, your actions will be inconsistent. If your mind is full of doubt, fear, and limitation, your results will reflect exactly that. Most people want to change their life, but they refuse to change the way they think. And that is the real problem. Because your current life is nothing more than the result of your current mindset. The way you think determines the way you act. The way you act determines your habits, and your habits determine your future. So if nothing changes in your mind, nothing changes in your life. Think about this. Two people face the exact same situation. One says, "This is impossible." The other says, "How can I figure this out?" Same problem, same reality, completely different outcome. Why? Because mindset shapes perception, and perception shapes action, and action creates results. Your mind can be your greatest tool, or it can become your biggest enemy. And the most dangerous part is that most people don't even realize it's happening. They repeat thoughts like, "I'm not good enough. This isn't for me. I don't have what it takes." And over time, they become those thoughts. They build an identity around limitation, and then they wonder why nothing changes. But the moment you start changing your mindset, everything begins to shift. You start seeing opportunities where you once saw obstacles. You begin taking action where you used to hesitate. You start moving forward where you once stayed stuck. And slowly, almost without noticing, your life begins to transform. You don't need more luck. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need someone to come and save you. What you need is control over your thinking. Because success doesn't begin outside of you. It begins inside you. It begins in the quiet decisions you make every day, in the thoughts you allow to stay, and the ones you choose to reject. If you don't work on your mind, none of the other pillars will hold. You can build everything else, skills, opportunities, even temporary success. But eventually, your own thinking will destroy it. Because you cannot outperform your identity for long. You will always fall back to the level of your mindset. So understand this clearly. Your mind is not designed to limit you. It is designed to expand you, but only if you train it, only if you challenge it, only if you refuse to let it control you without awareness. The strongest people are not the most talented. They are not the most lucky. They are the ones who learned to master their mind. And now that you understand this, we move to something even more powerful. Because thinking the right way is only the beginning. It is important, but it is not enough. Because without action, nothing changes. Now that you understand that everything begins in the mind, we move into something that most people avoid. Something that separates intention from reality. Something that transforms ideas into results. Discipline. Because you can have the right mindset, you can think positively, you can visualize success all day long, but without discipline, nothing changes. Discipline is what turns potential into progress. It is what forces movement when motivation disappears. And make no mistake, motivation will disappear. Most people rely on motivation. They wait until they feel inspired, until they feel ready, until everything feels right. And that is exactly why they stay stuck. Because motivation is temporary. It comes and goes. It is emotional. It depends on how you feel that day. But discipline is a decision. It is a commitment. It is doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. There will be days when you don't feel like working. Days when you are tired, distracted, overwhelmed. Days when your mind tries to convince you to stop, to delay, to quit. And in those moments, discipline is the only thing that will carry you forward. Not your mood, not your energy, not your excuses. Just discipline. Discipline is waking up when you said you would wake up. It is showing up when no one is watching. It is finishing what you started, even when it becomes uncomfortable. It is choosing long-term growth over short-term comfort, again and again and again. And the truth is, it is not supposed to be easy. If it were easy, everyone would do it. But they don't. And that is why discipline creates separation. You don't build discipline in big moments. You build it in small, daily decisions. Every time you choose to act instead of procrastinate, every time you choose to stay consistent instead of giving up, every time you follow through on your word, you are building discipline. And over time, that discipline becomes part of who you are. It becomes your identity. But here is where most people fail. They try to do too much at once. They try to change everything overnight. And when they can't sustain it, they quit. Real discipline is not about intensity. It is about consistency. It is about showing up every single day, even if the progress feels small, even if no one notices, even if it feels like nothing is changing. Because over time, those small actions compound into massive results. And once discipline is in place, something powerful happens. You begin to gain control over your life. You are no longer reacting to how you feel. You are no longer controlled by your environment. You are leading yourself. And that is where real power begins. But discipline alone is not enough. Because you can be disciplined and still be distracted. You can work hard and still go nowhere. That is why the next pillar is focus. We live in a world designed to steal your attention. Notifications, distractions, endless content, constant noise. Everyone is pulling your focus in a different direction. And if you're not careful, you will spend your entire life being busy, but not productive, moving, but not progressing. Focus is the ability to direct your energy toward what truly matters and ignore everything else. It is the ability to say no to distractions, to protect your time, to stay locked in on your path, even when everything around you is trying to pull you away. Most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they lack focus. They start something, then switch. They get excited, then distracted. They make progress, then lose consistency. And over time they end up with a lot of unfinished paths and no real results. Focus requires clarity. You need to know exactly what you are working toward. Because if you don't know your direction, you will follow whatever comes your way. And that leads to a life of confusion, frustration, and wasted time. When you develop focus, everything changes. Your actions become sharper. Your time becomes more valuable. Your progress becomes faster. Because you're no longer spreading your energy in 10 different directions. You are channeling it into one path, with precision. But focus is not just about eliminating distractions. It is about making decisions, deciding what matters, deciding what doesn't, deciding what deserves your energy and what doesn't. And once you make those decisions, you protect them, you commit to them. And now we arrive at the pillar that brings everything together: mindset, discipline, focus. They all lead to this one thing: action. Because at the end of the day, nothing happens without action. You can think, plan, analyze, prepare. But if you never act, nothing changes. Your life will remain exactly where it is. Now that you understand how mindset, discipline, focus, and action work together, we move into something even deeper. Because success is not only built by what you do occasionally, it is built by what you do consistently. It is built by your habits. Your habits are the invisible system that runs your life. They are the small actions you repeat every day without thinking, and over time, they shape everything: your results, your identity, your future. Most people underestimate habits because they seem small. Waking up a little earlier, reading a few pages, working a little longer, making better decisions in small moments. It doesn't feel like much, but over time, those small actions compound into something powerful. They become the difference between growth and stagnation, between success and failure. Your life right now is a reflection of your habits, not your goals, not your intentions. Your habits, because goals are what you want, but habits are what you do, and what you do every day will always matter more than what you wish for occasionally. The problem is, most people try to rely on willpower. They try to force change through motivation, through effort, through bursts of energy. But willpower is limited. It fades. It gets tired. And when it does, people fall back into old patterns. That is why habits matter. Because once something becomes a habit, it requires less effort. It becomes automatic. It becomes part of who you are. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And your habits are your system. So if you want a different life, you don't need to chase bigger goals. You need to build better habits. But habits don't exist in isolation. They are shaped by something else: your environment, the people you are around, the space you live in, the content you consume, the conversations you have. All of it influences you more than you realize. If you are surrounded by negativity, doubt, and limitation, it becomes normal. If you are surrounded by people who complain, who avoid responsibility, who settle for less, you will slowly start doing the same. Not because you want to, but because it becomes familiar. On the other hand, If you place yourself in an environment that challenges you, that pushes you, that expects more from you, everything changes. Your standards rise, your mindset shifts, your behavior adjusts, because environment shapes identity. This is why successful people are intentional about where they spend their time and who they spend it with. They protect their energy. They choose growth over comfort. They understand that the right environment can accelerate everything, while the wrong one can destroy progress. But even with the right habits and the right environment, there is one more pillar that determines whether you succeed or not. And that is persistence. Because no matter how strong your mindset is, no matter how disciplined you are, no matter how focused and consistent you become, you will face obstacles. You will face moments where things don't go as planned. You will face resistance, failure, doubt, and setbacks. And in those moments, most people stop. Not because they can't continue, but because it becomes uncomfortable, because it takes longer than they expected, because it doesn't feel worth it anymore. And that is where persistence becomes everything. Persistence is the ability to continue when progress is slow. It is the ability to keep going when results are not immediate. It is the decision to stay committed even when it gets hard. Because success is not built in moments of comfort. It is built in moments of resistance. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not talent. It is not intelligence. It is not luck. It is the willingness to keep going when others quit. Every setback is part of the process. Every failure is a lesson. Every obstacle is an opportunity to grow stronger. But only if you continue. Only if you refuse to stop. Most people give up right before things start to work. They quit when they are closest. They stop when they should push a little more. And they never realize how close they were. But the ones who persist, the ones who stay, the ones who continue despite everything, they are the ones who eventually break through. Not because it was easy, but because they refused to quit. And this brings everything together. Mindset gives you the vision. Discipline keeps you moving. Focus keeps you aligned. Action creates results. Habits build consistency. Environment shapes your identity. And persistence ensures that you never stop. This is not about overnight success. This is not about quick results. This is about building something real, something strong, something that lasts. Because at the end of the day, success is not a single moment. It is not one achievement, one win, one breakthrough. It is a process. It is a way of living. It is who you become. You don't become successful by accident. You become successful by design, by building these pillars, by applying them daily, by committing to growth even when it's hard. And the truth is, nothing is stopping you except the decisions you make today. You already have everything you need to begin. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need to wait. You just need to start. And once you start, you don't stop.